Okay, so the last time I spoke to you, I shared many details about my relationship with Adrian. I decided to provide him with a unique game after he was observed mucking around in the basement without seeking my assistance. Something that would truly capture his attention. I suggest that you instruct him. Now let us continue on this brief journey. Please ensure that you click the subscribe option. Right here, I have additional material that is about to impress you. My countenance was gradually illuminated by a gentle smile. My irises are becoming increasingly acute and distinct. Please be the grand enchilada, the final adversary. Human would not perceive it, but I did. I was aware of the extent to which I would go and the extent to which I desired him to accompany me down the rabbit hole. I still felt a tingling sensation when my fingertips touched my lips. Adrian, I murmured, my voice low and somewhat perilous, let's see if you can manage me. Let us determine whether you are prepared to meet your mother. I stood in my bedroom, the floor creaking beneath my feet at a volume that was scarcely audible above the sound of the shower running in the bathroom. My hands were slightly trembling as I tightened the thin bathrobe, the moist cloth adhering to my skin due to the steam. This irrational game had brought us to this point. The door was somewhat open, and I had selected the special pictures, crates, and notes to entice him. Please enter if you are unafraid, as it is written in large red letters across the surface. My pulse pounded in my chest, a combination of nervousness and excitement that I was unable to shake, as if it were a double dog dare to both of us. I, Adrian, my son, heard him before I saw him. The squeak of his sneakers, that brief delay before he entered the room. The toy sword was held in his hand as if it could protect him from the tempest I had incited, and the shower was in full swing. I had maintained this consistent sound in order to captivate him, as well as the scent of lavender. Frothy detergent is drifting out to meet him. I stood by the sink, my wet hair cascading down my shoulders, and the robe was scarcely secured. Waiting patiently, Adrian, I yelled, maintaining a gentle and tender tone in my voice. I desired for him to hear me and sense my pull, despite the slight tremor. He trembled. Despite the split door, I was aware that he did, and my heart raced. Is it possible for you to enter, my dear? Mother? Are you discussing the shower? I smiled to myself as his voice returned, unsteady and uncertain. Just as I had anticipated, he was perched on the brink. Yes, but it's all right, darling, I replied, maintaining a calm and smooth tone in my voice as I had previously rehearsed in my mind. I require your assistance with a matter. Please enter. I reclined against the sink, enjoying the cool sensation against my skin as the steam emitted a warm and dense mist. There was a prolonged delay, and I could visualize him standing there in my mind, as if he were rooted to the floor, contemplating. My considerate son had consistently demonstrated caution, the individual who was responsible for determining each motion in the video games. He was perpetually engaged in a game. However, it was not one that he could prevail in by relying on his intellect. No longer. The door creaked slightly as it opened. As he entered the washroom, he perceived a change in the air. For an instant, I was unable to exhale. Despite the vapors making it difficult to see, I was able to make out his tall figure, the sword still in his hand, and his eyes widening as they regarded me. I turned to face him, allowing the light to illuminate the contour of my body beneath the robe and my wet hair. I experienced a sensation that reverberated through me as his visage turned a fiery shade of red. He was present. He would arrive. Can you locate the key? I inquired, my voice quiet, my emotions more profound than I could articulate. I advanced toward the object. The robe is in motion with me, and the bottom of it is in contact with my legs. I observed his hand grasp the old brass key, which I had left for him like breadcrumbs in this sick little story, as he swallowed deeply. He mumbled, his voice somewhat rough, "Yeah, I found it by the front door." His eyes were fixed on the floor where my hair was dripping. He was unable to gaze upon me in its entirety, which only served to heighten my appeal. "Good," I replied as we approached each other. I could sense his warmth emanating from the air. You have always been adept at discovering items, have you not? Like the games you enjoy playing, right? I cocked my head in an attempt to observe the expression on his face. Recently, I had observed the change in his irises that indicated that he was no longer my child. However, there was another option that I could access. At that moment, he glanced upward, and we both gazed at each other with dead eyes. There it was, that profoundness, the expression he concealed. I was aware of the evenings he spent in his room. He believed that I would never predict the things he had on those headphones, but I did, and I am standing here. I contemplated whether he perceived it in me as well. The wonton, the pull, and the erroneous game I had devised to bring us to this point. "Mother, what is the matter?" Shaken, his voice broke, and for a fleeting moment, I considered withdrawing. He was frightened and perplexed, but he had not run, but not yet. I did not use the term null at that time. Rather, I extended my hand and touched the edge of the toy sword, running my fingers across it as if it were the genuine thing. "Adrian, you are my hero," I whispered, allowing my voice to become more delicate and sweet. "However, it is imperative that each hero undergoes a concluding examination, correct? Are you prepared?" The sound of the shower continued to fill the room, resembling a heartbeat that we could both feel. His chest was thumping rapidly, and his eyes were fixed on mine. I could see that he was bewildered, entangled in the web I had woven, uncertain whether to resist or yield. I stood there more closely than I had been in years, and was aware of the truth. We had crossed a line that we could not reverse, regardless of what he did or what came next. The world collapsed into a mere two of us, enveloped in the humid sensation of his body in the bathroom as the shower fizzled out. I touched the knot of my robe with my fingertips, and the wet fabric slipped until it came undone. Fallon collapses to the ground. I stood there, my skin tingling, my respiration short, and my body awash in sensation. Adrian was speaking, but I was unable to hear him. His lips were moving, his eyes were fixed on me in astonishment, and something else was smoldering in the background. I rapidly filled the gap between us. My heart was beating so rapidly that I was convinced it would rupture. My finger was pressed to his lips, preventing him from speaking, and the warmth of his body caused me to tremble. I removed his shield, which he had constructed to safeguard himself, with my other hand. He was touched by my fingertips. He was firm and alive, and I could sense his presence in the same way that his body knew, despite the fear in his gaze. I whispered, "Shh, baby," my voice trembling but resolute, a command that was encased in affection. The heartbeat under my touch, the wanton that refused to release, was palpable to me, despite his appearance of terror. I assured myself that he also desires this. The thoughts are settling. There is something amiss within me. I felt him growing in my hand as my hand wound around him, moving slowly. His voice was a broken sound, incapable of producing a single word, "Mom." I was unable to halt the tempest that I had unleashed, and he was ensnared. No, not at this time. I knelt on the damp tile, and my eyes were fixed on him. My lips parted, and I slowly took him in, my tongue moving softly. I moaned into him, as the flavor was strong and unexpected. I pushed harder, inhaled deeply, and drew back, tears streaming down my face. I kissed him once more, my mouth never remaining still and my hand perpetually in motion, as if there was a shimmering substance that united us. Shaky I stood, my body trembling with a desire that I was unable to accurately identify. I guided him to the sink by grasping his hand, my back pressing against the frigid edge. I was alive in every aspect of my being. My epidermis was hot and prepared, and my legs had opened. I did not require even more ties. I had already arrived to wait for him. I reached back, allowing my fingers to contact his, and instructed him to approach until I felt him touch me. I pushed back, wishing to be closer, and a quiet moan escaped. Suddenly he was inside me, his hands grabbing my hips as he moved. A wave of emotion washed over me with each contact, and my voice echoed his name. "Adrian, I apologize." The sound of the shower is mingled with the vibrations from the walls. Subsequently, a voice, both lucid and furious, penetrated it. "What are you doing? You are a freak. That is your offspring." I was paralyzed. As I turned my head, everything came to a halt. She was standing in the entryway. Another version of myself. Hatred twisted her visage, and her fists were clenched. She was running at me before I could even think. Her hand struck my face, causing me to awaken. My chest ached as sweat saturated my skin and I gasped, snapping my eyes open. I was lying in my bed. The morning light shone through the draperies. I was attempting to breathe properly as the room was silent. A dream? It was merely a dream, but my body was unaware of it. It was still palpable to me. The heat, the action, and the dampness between my legs. I sat up, my hands trembling as I attempted to regain control of myself. What was that? How could I have dreamed of something so vile? In regards to my own son? I shook my head, desiring it to vanish. However, it persisted, as evident as day. I arose from my bed, removed my wet undergarments, and disposed of him in the dirty clothing. I removed an additional pair from the drawer and experimented with them. As an echo of the dream that I was unable to dispel, the shower continued to hum in my mind. I couldn't help but ponder, and I dreaded the implications of feeling so alive in that dream. The bed was in close proximity, yet it appeared to be a distance of miles. Every movement was burdened by the events that transpired. My breath caught as his warmth pressed against me, and my fingers tightened around Adrian's, gingerly pulling him. I could feel his eyes on me, dark and searching, filled with something I couldn't identify but understood all too well. The fabric of the dress shifted with each step, and it clung to my skin. This unspoken ache that had been building between us now spilled over into this instant as the air buzzed with it. I turned to face him as we reached the edge of the bed, my hands still clasping his. His chest rose and fell rapidly, and his lips parted as if to speak. However, no words emerged. I did not require them. He gazed at me with such intensity that I could discern every detail. Confusion, remorse, and desire were all interwoven in the deep brown eyes of my son, whom I had known since he was a baby. Nevertheless, there he was, a man who stood before me, trembling under my contact. I whispered again, my voice now softer, almost a plea. "Adrian." I released his hands and placed mine on his face, pressing my palms against his cheekbones and sensing the faint stubble beneath. He flinched slightly, but he did not withdraw. "It's all right," I repeated, as much for myself as for him. He swallowed forcefully, his hands hovering at my waist, and his fingers brushing the dress's fabric, as if he was hesitant to commit to the contact. "Mom, we shouldn't." His voice was hoarse and strained, but there was no conviction in it, just a shadow of doubt that I could feel ebbing away. I leaned in, closing the distance between us, my forehead resting against his, my breath mingling with his. "But I can't stop feeling this, can you?" It was simultaneously a confession, a challenge, and a query. I retreated just enough to meet his gaze. His eyes were seen to be flickering as he searched for the answer I was already aware of. Then his hands settled firmly on my hips, drawing me in closer. I gasped softly as the heat of him seeped through the dress, my fingertips sliding to the back of his neck. His lips moved with a passion that matched mine as he kissed me once more. This time with greater intensity. I sank into him, every nerve alight with the exhilaration of it. As the soft light blurred into a haze and the room spun, the edge of the bed caught, causing us to stagger backward. I sat down, dragging him with me while my legs supported me. My hands wandered his shoulders and back, memorizing the shape of him through his shirt, as his weight pressed against me, initially tentative and then heavier as he yielded. As he buried his face in my neck, his breath was hot and he let out a shaky exhale. "Mom," he murmured once more, the word catching in his throat. I compelled him to look at me by tilting his head. I commanded, my voice unwavering in spite of the turmoil within me, "Do not think, simply remain present with me." I kissed him once more, this time with a gentler touch, expressing all that I was unable to articulate. The years of sacrifice, the loneliness, and the love that had transformed into something new and perilous. His hand slid up my sides and he nodded with a small jerky motion. The dress hugged me so precisely that I arched into his touch as it traced the curves. His fingertips caressed the neckline, causing a shiver to run down my spine. The air was dense and electric, and I could feel myself enveloping myself in this moment, this forbidden space that we had jointly created. However, I was abruptly jolted from my reverie by a sudden groan emanating from the hallway. My body tensed beneath him, and my pupils widened. Andreen also froze, his breath catching as we both turned toward the sound. There was still a crack in the door, allowing the diffused light from the hall to enter. I briefly believed that I observed an apparition moving. "Mother." His voice was now a whisper, tinged with apprehension. "Have you heard that?" I sat up, my heart pounding for an entirely different reason. His arms were held by my hands. I instructed him to remain in place, and I slid out from under him, my nude feet striking the ground. I moved toward the door, each step laden with apprehension as the dress swished around my knees. I widened the opening, peering into the hallway, but it was devoid of any objects. Only the customary creaks of the house were audible. Andreen's face was pallid in the soft light, and his chest continued to heave as I returned to him. Despite the fact that my pulse had not reduced, I forced a smile and said, "It's nothing. Household only." However, as I stood there, the spell having been broken, a chilling surge of reality overtook me. What were we engaged in? What did I permit to transpire? He sat up, stroking his hair with his hand, his gaze avoiding mine. He whispered, "Perhaps we should cease," as the remorse returned to his voice. Despite the fact that every fiber of my being was in fierce opposition, I nodded. I may have echoed my voice hollow. I stepped back toward him, sinking onto the bed beside him, ensuring that we were in close proximity but not in contact. The silence between us was oppressive and unspoken, and I contemplated whether we would ever be able to recover from this or whether I even desired to. Andreen paused as we got to the edge of the bed, his hands resting gently on my hips. A storm of uncertainty and longing swirled in his eyes as his gaze met mine. "Are you certain?" he inquired, his voice so low that it scarcely broke the silence. I nodded, my hands trembling as I caressed his face, beckoning him closer for another kiss. "I have never been more certain of anything." My voice was gentle and resolute as I murmured against his lips. "I require this. I require your assistance." His final reluctance appeared to be shattered by those remarks. His lips caressed my neck in a manner that sent sparks racing through me, as his fingertips slid to the hem of my dress, slowly lifting it. I trembled as he gently lifted the dress over my head, allowing it to fall to the ground without a second thought. My hands intertwined with his hair. The calm air caressed my skin, but it was unable to alleviate the intense heat that was emanating from within me. Andreen's gaze swept over me, lingering on each contour and line as if he were in the process of engraving me into his memory. His hands followed, tenderly outlining my frame, chest, waist, and hips until I was trembling with an ache I could not contain. He whispered, his voice thick with awe, "You are so beautiful." He lowered his head, his lips contacting my epidermis and applying pressure. I was jolted by the soft caresses. I gasped, arching my back as waves of warmth deluged my senses. My fingertips gripped the sheets beneath me as I breathed his name. "Andreen," I begged, my voice trembling with longing. This time he did not hesitate. He quickly undid his trousers and slid them down, along with his underlayer, as his hands moved to his waistband. He stood before me, imposing and prepared, and the sight of him caused me to gasp more than I had ever anticipated. I gingerly wrapped my hands around him, offering a slow, careful touch as I reached out. Andreen's body responded to the low sound he let out as his hands grasped my thighs, gently separating them. He inhaled, his voice tense with emotion, as he drew nearer to his mother. My body was vibrating with anticipation as I bit my lip and nodded, granting him the silent permission he sought. Gradually, with caution, he advanced. His gaze were fixed on the object. I gasped, my nails digging into his shoulders as he filled the space between us. The connection was overwhelming after such a lengthy period of absence. Andreen began to move, each motion deliberate, as if he was savoring every second, his hands steadying my hips as his respiration hitched. I murmured, my thighs encircling him as he deepened his rhythm, touching a spot that caused a light stance behind my eyes. Oh, Andreen. As his pace increased, my hands drifted to his back, leaving faint marks that drew me closer to the edge. Mom, I am unable to do so, I am. His words broke into a ragged sound as he fully pressed himself into me, his release flooding over him just as mine surged. The surge that swept through me left me breathless and trembling. We embraced each other, our breaths intertwining as we endured the moment, absorbed in the intimacy. The room was silent for an extended period, with the exception of our irregular respiration. My mind was awash with a plethora of emotions as I gazed upwards at him, my fingers gently brushing the damp hair from his forehead. My pulse continued to pound. Andreen, I murmured, my voice laden with the weight of all that remained unsaid. I have a matter to disclose. With all my heart, I adore you. I implore you to cease your frigid treatment of me. We will continue to adore each other in this manner from this point forward, okay? The boy nodded in agreement, and we both wrapped ourselves in a tight embrace. The story's just beginning. There are more broken hearts and dark secrets ahead. Hit like, subscribe, and keep exploring with Love Missteps.